Hey there, welcome to another Curtis Stage tutorial. Today's tutorial is in Photoshop. We're going to be doing Photoshop image compositing with image manipulation and layout design. So let's get started. Now, before we get started, I want to talk about, a little bit background of, anytime you're working in design, you want to have a game plan going in. So we're going to be designing this LAFC match day poster. Like I said, we're going to be doing Photoshop compositing here with image manipulation and layout design. So this is the poster side, the image manipulation side. We're going to be doing LAFC, for you don't know, is the Los Angeles Football Club. Their star player currently is Carlos Vela. So we're going to be making something that looks similar to this. And then we're going to expand it out and do a little bit of layout, a little bit of graphics. So we'll be making something that looks something like this. Doesn't exactly, but something like that. Now, to get started with this, we want to have a little bit of background in what LAFC style is. We want to look at some material that's going to give us some inspiration. And as a designer, as an artist, you always want to kind of research your topic that you're making anything for. So let's take a kind of a little bit of a look at what LAFC is. So if we were looking at their website, you'd see that things on their website all have a similar look and feel. Everything that they do is connected with each other design-wise. They're very good about this. Even when you walk in the stadium feels like the club and feels like all the merch and feels like all the design. So you're not in some sort of, the stadium is specifically for LAFC. No other sports team plays there. So they can really kind of make the stadium look the way the club looks. So when you look at all their materials, and this is their schedule for 2020, you can see that pretty simple layout. They have the black, obviously, and gold. They have a specific gold color we'll talk about in a minute. And one thing I want to note here is they do use images. Notice that they've taken the color out of the images. And then they also, this year, they're using a lot of maps and kind of with textures on them. So that's something we could apply to our design if we wanted to. So that's part of what they're doing. So as a designer, as an artist, you always want to look to what the client is doing. So if we were creating this match day poster for LAFC to post on their social media, we'd have some guidelines to work with. We'd have some things that they'd want us to focus on that's going to connect with the club. So, even their text, this is something, little subtle things here. They use the A from the logo as part of Vela's name. We could use this. I didn't, if I go back to the design that I didn't use the font, the LAFC font here. I don't have that font, but I could pull it out of there if I wanted to. We probably won't do that for this design, but that's something that you could do. They also do fun things like this, but you can see how it's all connected. Every once in a while, they'll kind of break out and do something a little off. But I will tell you that even that red that they're using, that is coming out of the red of their palette, which we'll look at in a minute. Really love this right here, the LA thing. That's something that would be fun to put into a design. So Matthew Wolf, who's designed many sports, mostly soccer, mostly football. He's a logo designer in general. He's worked for Nike, based in New York. He was the one who came up with the LAFC logo and all their design. So I wanted to focus a little bit on him just for a second. He also did the New York Football Club logo, and I think he did their kits and stuff. So he talks, when you go on his website, he'll give you information about kind of how he came up with the ideas. And it's really important to kind of see what the designer was thinking about. So in here, I love this, where you get kind of a view of his sketches, things that he was kind of coming up with. Like I said, I do not have the typeface. The word mark for their club is a typeface called Nutraface. I don't have that one, so we're going to, we'll do something that's similar to it, I guess. But I love what he's thinking about with like the wings, universal symbol of speed, power, mobility. And I included that back in my poster right here. I put the wing logo right there. I really like that. Not their full LHC logo. which you can see on his uniform, but I like the wing there, just kind of keeping it very minimal. So going back to this, just, him talking kind of about, I like the colors here, the glamour of Hollywood with the black and gold, but having an urban texture of LA. Now that urban texture was something else I was thinking about when I was designing this. If you look closely, there's a little bit of texture going on in this thing, and there's texture going on this side as well, so we're going to add some texture to ours. So this idea of the urban texture. And these were some of the things he was thinking about when he came up with the logos. He kind of did a mood board. LA Aztecs, you'll see that. That was the original soccer club that was in Los Angeles. It's part of the North American Soccer League. That's long gone, but you can see that he was, kind of some of his inspirations here for designing the logo. Really great. Something we're going to look at pretty closely when we work on our project is the colors, and so we'll have this handy guide for us that Matthew made. It's great. So we can kind of get those colors, those hex colors. You'll see in the gold right here. Black's easy, but that gold, we need that color. If we're going to use any grays, we would have those. So I have that for you guys in your assets folder or in your assets in modules. And we're going to refer to that today. And then let's look at some match day posters that artists, not Matthew, have made. This is just other artists that have kind of used some of the ideas coming out of the design for LAFC, and they've created matched posters. Ours are going to look a lot different, but some of the ideas are there. Really like this one with the coach, where they've stripped the color out. They've made it very grainy. The kind of concentric circles are kind of cool. It gives it kind of I don't know what's going on there, but it's kind of cool. This one's pretty nice too. We get a little action with one of the players, Latif Blessing, but I really like the text that's kind of going sideways on this. That's pretty interesting, and so dynamic there. And I like the grittiness of this image here. You can see in the shadow here that they created, it has even some noise and grit in there. Pretty cool. There's two more. I mean, these are all different. I just kind of want to show you a bunch of different ones, but on this one right over here, you'll see that there's that gritty texture that's going on in there. Again, something we want to do. I really like these kind of explosive shapes that are happening around Latif Blessing, this player. Really like how the text wraps around this. One of your big projects for this class is going to be doing rock posters. This will be kind of a segue into that. That's at the end of the semester, but it gives us something to think about as we move into the rock posters, the music posters. This one's kind of funky and weird. I don't know if I would do it, but it does have that Art Deco feel that was also part of the design, and so there is that. Very interesting. Some of you may dig this. I'm okay with it. I don't love it. And then these two are the ones that I thought most connected with what I was kind of coming up with, where they stripped all the color out. They did a kind of a two-tone thing going here with the black and the gold. The gold color that we have back here, this California gold, they're calling it. They've used that California gold for these two match day posters and black. And I really like that kind of stripping out of all the other color, really kind of making the designs minimal and cohesive. So that's something that I really dig here. And these are things that go up on Twitter and Instagram. 3252, this is when they do the away games and they travel. That's the supporter section for LAFC. They make their own travel Twitter and Instagram designs. So they have a designer working for the supporters club. It's pretty awesome. Maybe. And I really dig this on the background of this one where the black and gold fades into black. That's pretty cool right there. You can kind of see it a little bit on the front of him, but it fades down into black, and he actually fades into black. Really, really cool. Okay, so let's get started in Photoshop. So you can see that I have a couple of my assets open. I have the Vela asset, I have the Cloud asset, and I've opened up a match day PSD. I've file new and saved it. Let's look at the size of this. I'm going to go to image and image size just so you can see what I've got. So my image size for this in pixels is 2100 by 1500. So 2100 high, 1500 wide, 300 resolution. And I just made a new blank document that we're going to put these assets in. So this is our poster. You want to save that, matchday.psd, name it whatever you want, but save that into your folder. All right, let's bring the Carlos Vela asset in. There's two ways we can do it. One way is we could click on the JPEG with our move tool, drag up onto that tab and let go. That's one way. The other way, of course, is go to Window, Arrange, and we could go up to 2 up vertical or 2 up horizontal, 3 up, whatever you want to do. And you can see that you'd have those things happening like this. So if I just a Window, let me just do that again, Window, Arrange, 2 up vertical. Now I've got that and I can drag it in. So click and drag. So however you want to do it. I'm going to close that down, don't need that open, so now I've got Vela in here. Now, let's do this. Let's size this down a little bit. It's a little large for our design, so Command T and zoom out, Command minus. We're going to grab a corner, bring this down. I kind of want maybe about that size. We'll be able to adjust them a little bit more later, but this is fine. Hit the check mark or return, and then we'll go from there. So now what I want to do is I want to have a duplicate background of this. So I'm going to do Command J as my keyboard shortcut. I'm going to name this top one Vela. I'm going to name the background BG for background. And we'll get to that one in a second. Let's click on the Vela one. We're going to select Vela. It doesn't need to be a perfect selection, but let's get it pretty close. Let's go to our quick selection tool. You'll notice that I have the plus sign up here on the options bar checked. That's an add to selection. I'm going to expand my brush with my bracket tool on my keyboard, kind of go in here. I'm not really worried about hair so much. I do want to get that ear. So that's good. Now what we want to do is we want to create a mask out of this. So we want to have a mask. So I'm on the Vela layer. I'm going to go down to the bottom of my layers palette, click the add layer mask. There we go. We've got that. Now I want to use this mask edges to do the next thing that we're going to do. So I'm going to hold down Command and click on the mask. So I've got my marching ants back again. I've got my selection back again. Now I'm going to turn off the eyeball on the Vela layer and I'm going to go to the background layer. What we're going to do is we're going to get rid of this background. Really super easy, pretty cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Edit. Well, first, before we do that, we have to expand this a little bit because what we're going to do is we're going to do a content-aware fill. And to do that, we have to, oh, I see I missed a part on this leg right here. So I want to get that again, and I'll get it on this right here. It's fine. I want to get that on the mask as well later, but for this, I want to get that leg. If you missed a part of the leg, or any part of his arm or whatever, make sure you've got all those parts, at least on this background layer. We can always fix it up here in a minute. So what I want to do is I want to expand this. So I want to go to Select, and I want to go to Modify and Expand. We're going to go about 9 pixels and click OK. We need this expansion because we're going to do a content-aware fill. Photoshop needs to see that we want to fill this in, and it needs to see a little bit of the background too to make that happen more precisely. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to Edit, and I've got the content aware fill, but I'm not going to use that. I'm going to actually just go to the fill, and you'll get the dialog box up here. We're going to be using a bunch of this today, and I'm going to go to content aware. Everything's fine right here. Click OK. Awesome. Pretty good here. Little blurry down here. We're going to fix that in a second. So Command D, deselect. So I'm going to get down in here. Now the other way, look, you wouldn't even know he was there. I mean, kind of do, but the other way would be the edit and then content aware fill right here, which is grayed out. That one brings up a whole dialog box, and that's fine too, but this one was just quicker. So now what I'm going to do is do a little cleanup on the grass on this background layer. So I'm going to go to the clone stamp tool. I don't want this blur. That's pretty bad too, but not as important. But this blur down here, I don't want so much of that. So clone stamp tool, I want a soft round brush in general brushes. Make sure you go to general brushes, soft round brush. I'm going to hold down Option to pick up, right? Maybe make my brush a little bit bigger. Hold down Option to pick up pixels. Then I'm going to go over here. I'm going to paint those across, Don't go all the way across because you'll pick up more blur. That looks pretty good. Maybe a little blur over here. So I'm gonna pick up pixels right there, Option click, and drop them there. I can get that, it's gonna bug me. Option click, go across. Notice how I'm staying on the same image plane here. This stuff doesn't matter in here. We're not gonna see any of that. We're only gonna see the bottom of the grass in this image. I'm gonna go back to my move tool, and I wanna actually move this image down towards the bottom of our screen. I'm gonna move it down here so the edge of the grass is right there. Awesome. Because we don't want any white on the bottom of our design. We want it to go to grass. We're not gonna see any of this up here, so I'm not worried about it. I'm gonna turn back on Carlos Vela. Now, he's a mask now, so right, I can move him around, right, wherever I want. So he's in a mask situation. So I'm gonna keep him up there though. Notice how the mask moves with him, and we're not seeing, right? Black hides, white reveals. So white's revealing Carlos Vela and hiding the grass that's on that layer, on the Vela layer. So don't see any grass. Now, I do want to maybe clean up a little bit. I'm gonna zoom in, clean up on this mask. How do I do it? I'm gonna click the black. I'm gonna click the mask, black and white, and I'm gonna go over to my paintbrush. I'm gonna get a soft round paintbrush. So I'm going to go back up to general brushes. It could be hard round, I guess, on this one. I'm going to go up to the hard round, close that down, get my brush a little bit bigger here. So I'm going to, let's see what size. Oh, the brush was huge. I'm going to take that brush down, maybe about 70. So that's pretty good. Maybe get it a little smaller. I'm going to paint with black or white. I want white to bring back the edge of his, so again, right here, I want white to bring back the edge there, and right here. And my opacity's way down. You got to make sure your opacity's at 100%. That would help. So bringing that opacity up, get that. Let's see what's going on. I don't want that. So I'm going to X on my keyboard. We'll get rid of that. Oh, that might just be part of this background. Yeah, it's part of the background right there. It's no big deal. We might see it. I might get that out of the background. The edge of his arm, that green, no big deal, but I definitely want this going on here. So white. All right, pretty good. We got Carlos looking good. Nice. Okay, now we want to put in our clouds. If you don't have that tab open, you can open that up. I'm going to take that asset. I'm going to drag it into Photoshop if you don't have it already open. So it needs to be a separate tab. I don't want this to be a smart object. So what I want to do is I want to take this with my move tool, drag it right into my match day. And then what I want to do is I want to bring it down below, right? I want to bring it down below my background layer. This is fine down here. I'm going to turn it and move it into space. So I may, I got to decide which way I want the clouds. So I'm going to zoom out. Command T, this is a pretty big image, much bigger than the other one. I'm gonna find kind of a good composition. I can always turn this a little bit later, but I wanna do something, it's dramatic. So something like this, I can move it up to see, I can move it up just a little bit, just kind of see where it lies. What I'm thinking about here is kind of how those clouds, those don't work there. These are really good right here. I want kind of a little bit of white behind his, kind of going over the shoulder, giving me this directionality right here. So if it was all over here, it's a little too dark. That may be cool, but this is dramatic right here. And I kind of like something like that. That's pretty cool. I'm going to bring it back down below the background layer. So that's where I want it there. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go up to the background layer. We're going to put a mask on the background layer. So let's add a mask on there. The mask is going to hide something to the left and reveal the clouds at the bottom. So we've got the white mask right here, and we're going to paint into this. So we're going to paint into this using the gradient tool, not a paintbrush this time. So we're going to go over to our toolbar. We're going to click on gradient. You'll see that in our gradient editor, we're going to go to basics, the basics folder. I've got this one right here or that one right there. I'm going to pick this. If you see a black to white, that's pretty good too. So however you want to do it, it could be this. So it's white to transparent. I'm going to switch this to black. If you don't have that, you might have it. I'm going to switch it to black to transparent and click OK. You may already have black to transparent. So we got that. So it should look like this up on top. It's going to be a linear gradient. Make sure your mode is normal. Your opacity is 100. So we're also going to make sure that our foreground color is black when we're painting on this. So what we're going to do is we're going to start from the top and paint down. We're going to do a couple passes on this. You'll see what this does. Remember, black hides, white reveals. So we're hiding to the left and revealing clouds on the bottom. So I'm going to hold Shift down on my keyboard to get a straight line. And see how I'm adding. Let me zoom in. See how I'm adding. Holding Shift down gets a straight. You don't have to hold Shift down. If you don't, it's kind of a free form. But I'm going to hold Shift down and I'm going to keep painting until I'm just revealing the clouds. I don't want to see this line of the stands too much. So I'm kind of painting down into here. I want that's pretty good. I want a nice transition between the clouds and the grass. So it looks a little kind of smoky, something like that. That looks pretty good. Nice. And again, you can go down here and reposition your clouds with your move tool if you want, so you can kind of position them. I like where I have it. You know, it's just a matter of kind of moving this around, kind of doing that. Okay. Okay, so our next step is we're going to click on the background layer. We're going to add a solid color. I'm going to pick the solid color is going to be somewhere right over here by his hip. This kind of blue color right here, just a dark cloud color. It's all great. Now, this is going to not make sense at first. What we're going to do is we're going to go back to our gradient and we're going to paint in here, but we're going to move this mask up. So watch what we do here. I'm going to go to my gradient tool, same gradient, black to transparent. Black is my foreground color. I'm going to paint kind of up. Just do one of those, just one real quick. And then you're going to click on your mask and move it to the layer 1. Now we're going to click on the mask. Got the color layer below it. I'm going to paint up. And what I'm doing is I'm kind of creating a little bit of a better transition between the clouds and the grass. So not a lot. So if you look at my mask right there, it's going to reveal the blue. It's hiding clouds and revealing the blue. So in other words, I want the clouds to kind of wisp away a little bit. I might have done it too much. You can go back one step, something like that. But what I don't want is I don't want them they look kind of weird down here. So again, just a little bit up in there and it darkens them up a little bit. You don't want to go too far up because you'll get rid of them completely, but something like that looks good. It's going to give it a little bit more motion. It's also going to push him out from the background a tad. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to click on our Vela layer. Let's do our clouds. Let's click on the cloud layer. You can name it clouds if you want. And I'm going to click on the cloud layer and I'm going to add a little bit more drama to this by going to filter, and we're going to go to camera raw filter. So we're going to add a camera raw filter to this, kind of increase the drama. Remember, we've got this mask going on in here. We're looking at this kind of part up here. So I'm going to bring up the shadows down this way, kind of increase the drama there. Exposure is fine. I'm going to pull the blacks down a little bit. So something like maybe shadows minus 50. You can kind of hand put it in if you want. I'll keep it even numbers. Blacks minus 30. I'm going to bring up my texture just a little bit. We're going to add more of these later. Bring my vibrance. I'll mess with this later. Maybe vibrance down minus 15. We'll go back into this later and click OK. Yeah, that's good. Now I want to do the same thing to Vela up here. So I'm going to go up top to his. I'm not clicked on the mask. I'm actually clicked on here, right, on him. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go to filter, camera raw filter. This is a nice little editor here. And I'm going to bring the same, I'm going to bring the shadows down a little bit, blacks down a little here. I'm going to bring up his texture and his clarity, just making him look gritty. I want that. I kind of want to go for a gritty look. Bring the vibrance down. So I'm bringing the vibrance way down. I'm not going all the way down. We're going to make this black and white in a little bit, but I'm going to bring that vibrance down. Maybe the highlights up just a bit and click OK, right? It's just giving him a little bit more drama there. So pretty nice. Now, maybe one more thing. Let me go back to that. And I'm going to actually convert this into a smart, if my mask is really good, I'm going to convert this to a smart object so that I can actually apply those filters on there and go back and change them. This is kind of a cool thing to do. So let's go up to layer and smart object and convert to smart object. What this does is you'll see now that when I put this camera raw filter on here, it will, I'll be able to go back and edit it more later. I'm gonna go back in, I'm gonna sharpen this up a little bit. So see this little triangle thing here? I'm gonna go in here and hit the sharpen and get that way up. I just want more edge on here. Bring the radius down. I can zoom in. I can zoom into this. So I basically want them sharpened up. I don't want them soft. I want them kind of gritty looking. So I'm gonna sharpen up. Let's see the radius. Yeah, you just mess around with that. But I want that sharpness around 75. Luminance will, if I take that up too high, problem is going to take out some of that noise. I actually kind of want that noise in there. So maybe a little less, and then click OK. Now look, it's a smart filter now, which is great because I can go back and click on this again and re-edit it if I want. So that converting any layer, we could do that with the clouds as well. So I can go to the clouds and let's just do it, just to kind of get in the habit of this. Layer, right? Smart objects, convert to smart object. Awesome, there it is. Now what I can do is I can go back in and I can go to filter, right? And I could actually even combine all these layers right now if I wanted to. I can combine the clouds, the grass, and the blue all into one. I could do something like that. So, or not, whatever. And so I'm going to go up to filter, and then I'm going to go to camera raw filter. And as you'll see it now, you'll see it. It's got the chunk out of there. So you can go back in and sharpen that up if you want to. Get those clouds looking a little grittier, and click OK to that. So just want to kind of show you how that works, that there's a smart object going on here. All right, so the next step, we're going to go up to the top, back up to our Vela image up here. Notice that all the background is gone on that. When we made it the smart object, it basically just took the mask. So now I don't have his grass or anything up there. Now, what I want to do is I want to add a layer up on top that's 50% gray, and we're going to dodge and burn him a little bit. We're going to brighten and darken. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and add a blank layer up in here and fill it. So I'm going to go to edit, fill. We're back to this little thing. We're not going to do any content aware. We're going to go into 50% gray, which allows us to paint in here. So we're going to go to soft light. You'll see kind of how this works. I'm going to go to soft light. Soft light knocks out all half and half. So again, with blend modes up in here, this knocks out all lights. This knocks out all darks. This knocks out all 50%. So soft light's going to be the one we want to use. So then I can go over to the toolbar and I can go get dodge and burn. So if I click on the dodge tool, it's going to lighten. If I click on the burn tool, it's going to darken. So I'm going to go to the dodge tool and I'm going to zoom in. And again, it's really just on Carlos Vela. Well, to make sure it's just on Carlos Vela, I'm going to make this a clipping mask. So I'm going to hold down Option or Alt, click right in here in between. So see how now this is just pointing down at Vela, And now I want to go in here. It won't get any of the clouds or anything down here. So now I'm going to go in here and let's see, midtones, and I can make it my exposure. I want to make it about 20%. And I go in here and kind of lighten up even more. And then if I go over here to the burn, right? And I can go with the midtones and get my, I'm going to go up a little higher. See how I can kind of darken, because it's lighter on this side of my clouds and I want to kind of darken him up a little bit over here so I can make my exposure. I'm just picking the midtones, but you can see you could pick the shadows, the highlights. So if I go the highlights, it'll take, it's subtle here, but if I keep painting, it's gonna get darker. So I'm just kind of getting along the edge, getting along this edge on here. So I'm just darkening up along that edge, and you can highlights. It's subtle. Something I like to do, get my exposure up. Switch to the midtones. Okay, that's fine. Maybe the inside of that leg. Pretty cool. Okay, I'm gonna go back over here to my dodge and brighten up this side of his face. Basically bring the exposure, because I got these clouds here that are bright, so I want him bright on that side. So it's just kind of like, it was already pretty good. This picture, I found a picture that was kind of work here, but I basically just want it to fit a little bit better. All right, something like that. Probably looking good. All right, you'll notice it's just a layer that goes right up on top up here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine these layers together, this layer and this layer. So what I want to do is I'll hold Shift down and merge those two layers. So I'm going to go to Layer, Merge Layers, or Command E. I've got that. Now what I want to do is kind of a cool, fun thing. I'm going to make a duplicate copy of Vela. So I'm going to Command J. Okay. The layer, this is the Vela layer. I lost my layering naming. This is going to be the Vela blur. So I'm going to do a little blur on this Vela layer. I'm going to turn off the Vela on top, and I'm going to click on the blur. I'm going to go to Filter. I'm going to go to Blur, and I'm going to go to Motion Blur. Okay, sweet. That's a pretty big blur. Maybe, and I want it to go, I don't want my angle to be too crazy. I want to kind of straight across here. So 0 is fine. And I just want to give him a little bit of action blur. Maybe a little bit of an angle. No, I kind of like it 0 or 1, whatever. Click OK to that. Turn on your Vela. Look at that. That looks cool. Turn that on. Now lock your Vela layer. Turn it on, but lock it. Go back to the blur. Now, I don't want the blur on this side. I only want it on that side. I want that. See, I only want it over here, right? I can even move the blur over just a tad, like that. But I don't want any on this side of his body. So I moved it over with my move tool. Just kind of took it and moved it over a little bit. Cool. But I don't want any along here. So I'm going to go to my eraser tool. And I don't use the eraser much. Many of you guys know that. I would normally do masks, but on this, I don't need a mask. So my eraser tool, I'm going to do a soft round. I'm going to hit that side of Vela, right? I don't want it on this side of him. It doesn't make any sense to have the blur coming off that side. I don't want it on this side of his head. I don't want it on that shoulder. I just want it coming off this edge here. Don't want it on that side of the ball. I want it only on that side. So that looks cool, right? Looks cool. This is why I didn't really care about the edge so much, because I knew I was gonna kind of do this. Very nice. So that gives me a little movement on Vela. I like that, digging that. Coming off the ball, coming off him, gives me a little speed there. He's already moving, gives me a little speed. Okay, so now what I wanna do is I wanna get an overall kind of texture on top of him. So I want to bring in another asset that's going to be a texture asset. So let's go find that. It's the scratches. So I'm going to take that, drag it to my Photoshop icon, open that up. I'm going to go to my move tool right here. I'm going to move that into my PSD file, put it on top. Now we can go to blend mode, right? So it could be soft light, and then I bring that fill down on it. See this? So I bring the fill down on soft light, and you just see them a little bit, and then the opacity down a little bit. Very cool. And I can move them around. So Command T, and so click on it, Command T, see how big that is, and you can move it around. And I just Command minus, Command plus, zoom me in, but I can move this. Be careful that you don't move your other stuff. So you can decide where you want those dusts and scratches and things. So I kinda want some down on the grass, a little bit, kind of a little texture, just a little texture here. So I'm moving it kind of like that. That looks pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing I did with the Vela thing. I'm going to make a copy of this, Command J, do the same thing, and bottom one I'm going to blur. So I'm going to go to the filter. It's going to remember your last blur. So if you go to filter and motion blur, it's going to remember that last one under there. Things too. It's a motion blur is pretty cool. I could see what the, yeah, it's getting too dark, but I could try vivid light on this bottom one and then bring its opacity down. That's pretty cool. Again, it's always a little different every time I do this. I just kind of will come up with something a little bit slightly different. That looks nice. Digging it. Now, it's great in that it's all these colors, but remember, LAFC doesn't want a bunch of colors. They really want to, you know, their style guide is kind of creating something that's not a bunch of colors. So here's where we can get really creative with all this. I'm going to take all this, I'm going to merge everything down. So I'm going to click here and go all the way to there. I don't care about the background. And I'm going to merge all those. So I'm going to go to layer, merge layers. So I better like what I've got so far. Okay. I'm going to better like what I've got. So now what I'm going to do is I can convert this to black and white. So again, I want to make this a smart layer. So I'm going to go to layer, smart objects, convert to smart object, so that whenever I put a filter on here now or any kind of thing on here, it will it'll be something that is going to be really good for, you know, that I can go back and change, right? So if I want to add any noise or anything like this, like I could do that. I could, you know, add noise on the top of that. I can go and do any color changes that, and it's going to be fine. So I actually, once I've done that, I'm going to go up to layer and new adjustment layer. And I'm going to go to black and white, and then we got that. So that's pretty cool right here. I feel like I might need some more noise in here, some more. There's a little noise that's going on in here. It looks pretty cool. It looks pretty nice. I actually like it. This actually looks kind of cool. You have to kind of just look at your textures, see what you've got in there. So that looks pretty good. I've got that black and white layer over the top, which is non-destructive. Now, if I go down here and I do want to add a filter, and I want to go to, let's say, noise, and I want to go to add noise, or dust and scratches on here, but let's see the noise on here. It's a lot. Just want a little bit, right? I want to see if this is going to look good right here. That looks cool. Unifies the whole thing. So maybe around, yeah, you just have to kind of decide. Yeah, around 7. I'm gonna actually push it up, maybe around 9. I kind of dig that. Uniform, there's Gaussian, a little too much on the Gaussian. Uniform's good. Monochromatic, important. You want to have that checked. That's gonna be good. It's gonna make it a little grittier. Digging that. That looks cool. So when you zoom in, Command plus, now you've got a unification of noise that just kind of takes the whole image and unifies it. Super dramatic right now. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add a gradient over the top of this. It's going to be our color. So I'm going to go down to the bottom down here. And I'm going to go to a gradient. We're going to add a gradient layer. And we're going to click this. And this is where we're going to need our colors from LAFC. We're going to need that color swatch thing happening. Okay, so let me get that open here. So I'm going to go to branding. I'm just going to double click and open this. So I've got that open. So there's my color right here. So that C39, I'm going to make this smaller, get that open on the side. And then when I go back here and when I click on my color, my gradient editor, and I click this color, I want this black to not be black. I want it to be this gold. So I want to put in here the California gold. So I'm looking at that hex number C39E6D. There it is. Okay, cool. Okay, I'm going to leave it to transparent. I might change this, of course, but I'm going to leave it to transparent. Click OK. Now what I want to do is I want to see what that looks like, right? Kind of the whole color thing. Okay, so I like overlay on that, right? I like overlay. That looks pretty good. That's nice. That's getting that grass down at the bottom and going to black and white. And now I'm going to do another one going up at the top and kind of coming down. Okay, so then I'm going to add another gradient. And actually, you know what? I kind of like the gradient like this. I'm just going to add another layer on top of this and fill this with that color. So I'm going to fill that layer with that color, same color. Probably should have just copied it. So C39E6D. So C39E6D. There's my California gold color. Sweet. Okay. Now I'm going to go in here and now I can kind of see what this looks like. So again, this is the 50% gray area. You can fool around in here. You can go with something like this, although that's getting a little rusty. This soft light looks pretty awesome. Okay. So the gradient on the bottom helped out just to transition. This is gonna kind of, and then I can bring the opacity down. I don't have to have it that crazy, right? So maybe around 50% of that. Oh yeah, it's toning it really nicely, right? The fill in here, that will get some of the darks. Kind of like it up here. So you can see all those dust and scratches and noise, really, really good. All right, so let's add our text in here. We're getting there. We're getting there, people. Let's add our text in here. We're going to do a part 2 of this video. The part 2 will be the layout part. Let's just get this poster done, and then we'll do the layout part. Let's put the text in. So now we're going to go to our type tool. Okay, I've got a font called Overgrow that I downloaded from the internet. And this is a pretty good font. You can go onto defont.com and look for Overgrow. So I use that one. You can use any thick, bold font you want. But if you want to go to defont.com, look for Overgrow. Download that. I'm going to pick white here. And let me type in Vela. It's really small. Let me get it big. Something like this. And of course I want this to go behind him, so I'm going to put it down here. Oops, I want it to go right there, so behind the color things. And then because I want the colors to kind of be part of this. And then what I want to do is go in here and go to soft light. Actually, it might have to go above. Yeah, I might have to go on top and do the soft light up above. Now I could have put this in prior to this whole step where we merge this down and really put it behind him. I could have done that. That's totally fine. But I can also put it up on top, convert this to a rasterized image, and go in and erase out the vela across it. You can decide. Losing it a little bit up in those clouds up here, so maybe it's kind of like right down here. Okay, pretty cool. And then you can, if you don't like how it's getting kind of lost in here, you can go in here and kind of put a stroke around this and see if that kind of helps. So you can do a stroke and maybe make it white and do something like that. Like I said, every time I do this, slightly different. So I just kind of, I mean, I could do it the same, but why? So I'm going to keep that stroke really thin, and the opacity, bring it down just so there's a little bit, just a little thin here. So maybe one. You can change the color of it and go kind of down in here, pick, nah, it's not bright enough. It kind of has to be up in here. It has to be, oh yeah, something like this soft kind of tan color. That's kind of cool. Click OK. So you could just do a slight little stroke on there, which is an outline, right? So that looks pretty good. Something like that. It's just about placing it, you know, kind of where you want it. I kind of want to have it bold and big through there. I can make this a little smaller if I want. Get it down just a little smaller. Hit the check mark. It was a little too near the edge, and maybe I don't want it. I kind of like it up here. Just want to make sure I can see it in those clouds still. Pretty good. So one thing you could do is, if you don't want it over the face, right, you could convert this. Like I said, I could rasterize this and go to rasterize type, right, and then put a mask on it. And then I could mask out, paint with my paintbrush, I could mask out this area right in here so it's not going over his face. Get my brush a little bigger, zoom in, and you can make it look like it's, see how the E up here looks like it's going behind him. I like doing this trick, right? It looks like the L, look at this. See how that L looks like it's now going behind his head? So it's almost wrapping around a little bit. Pretty sweet. I still want the bottom of the E and the L here to be there. Where else would this be cool? Well, I mean, it could, I kind of want to leave that. I just don't want it on his face, right? So again, I just made a mask and painted with black. Made sure my opacity was 100. Had a hard edge brush, something like that. It's pretty cool. So then you can still see that it's Vela, but you just want to not have it going over his face when people zoom in on it. All right, the last little step maybe is to put that wing right there, the wing logo that they use in the in their logos. So let me get that. That would be another asset. And so when you grab that asset, you can get it off the internet or you can pull it off. I'll have it in the assets folder. So right here, I've got it in my assets folder here. And I'm going to pull this into here. Size that down. If I want to knock out black, what do I do if I want to knock out black? Right? Hit the check mark. Oops. Hit the check mark right here. If I want to knock out black, I go up to mode, right? And then I can get any one of these in here. Overlay is 50%, right? Don't want that. So I want to lighten or screen. So screen's going to be the best one. Go back to my move tool, move that in the corner, get that down there. Nice. That poster looks really good. All right, so we'll do part 2 of this in the second tutorial. This is pretty good for the poster side. All right, I hope you're enjoying this. Once again, this is a Curtis Stage tutorial. I'll see you in part 2.